Good evening. Good evening, everybody. There's one very enthusiastic or loud person, I'm not sure which, over here. Let's try again. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming this evening to be part of this presentation of the E. Pauline Riall Lecture Series. My name is Janet Dudley Eschbach, and I'm president of Salisbury University. Tonight, Will Richardson will speak to us on the topic of technology in teaching. I can't think of a more fitting conversation for Salisbury University and our community at a time when we have just opened the new Teacher Education and Technology Center, one of the most technology advanced teacher education facilities in the country. Today's generation of millennials, as we've been told you students are known. Did you know that? You're millennials? You've grown up surrounded by technology that many of us from, well, let's just say an earlier generation, may be just beginning to get the hang of. In fact, I was having a conversation over dinner with Mr. Richardson and shared with him that it wasn't too many years ago I was invited into a classroom to guest lecture. It was something about Latin American history, and I took in my Kodak slide carousel. And when the students started giggling, I knew I was in deep trouble. And the slides were sold, some of them were warped. In any case, I do want you to know that I have been introduced to Wii and have established new records in bowling and, let me see, it was bowling and one other sport that I particularly excelled. In any case, technology is a part of all of our lives today, but probably particularly our students. Integrated into every facet from learning to socializing with your friends to entertainment. You expect your world to be current in technology trends and anticipate that it's going to be a natural part of your learning environment as well. So imagine the challenge before today's teachers who may not have had the same inclination, training, and background in technology. We must engage our students in a way that captures the appeal of a video game while using all of the tools at our disposal. Will Richardson is an expert in helping us all to do that. His book, blogs, wikis, podcasts, and other powerful tools for the classroom received critical acclaim in 2006. And the book provides an important resource for today's classroom teachers. Having spent 22 years teaching in public schools himself, he is uniquely qualified to recognize the challenges as well as the realm of possibilities in the classroom for teachers to utilize technology to the benefit and the high standards of today's students. My special thanks to Dr. Dennis Patanacek, the Dean of the Seidel School of Education and Professional Studies, and Laura Marasco, Chair of the Riall Lecture Committee, for bringing Will Richardson to campus, and of course, special thanks to Mr. Richardson for being here with us and for contributing to this timely dialogue. And so without further delay, I'd like to call to the podium Dean Dennis Patanacek. Thank you.
On behalf of the Seidel School of Education and Professional Studies, it's my pleasure to add my welcome to you this evening. Welcome to the Fall 2008 Riall Lecture. This lecture is named for Pauline Riall. Miss Riall was the principal at the Campus Demonstration School, which was housed in Carruthers Hall. The building was built in 1954, and it served as the campus school until 1969, and it was modeled after many campus demonstration schools across the country. Miss Riall was a local educator from the Eastern Shore who went away to school at Towson University and later at Teachers College at Columbia. She believed in her children, she believed in teaching, and she believed in this normal school that had started at Salisbury University. She really made a difference in this community and this university when she left the bulk of her estate to the university, and one of the purposes was to start this lecture series. By my estimation, over 500,000 public school students have been taught by people who have been to a Riall lecture. That's quite a difference and quite an impact that one person can make. I want to say that there are some special guests in the audience, and I won't name all of them, but Provost Tom Jones is here. We have our colleagues and friends from the Maryland State Department of Education. We have the Wycomico County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. John Frederickson, the Somerset County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Karen Brophy, and many other colleagues and teachers from our local schools. You know, I said that Ms. Riall made a difference, and in following that, the Riall lecturers have made a difference to us as well. Cornel West made a difference when he taught us about diversity firsthand and really introduced the students to Salisbury University to new ideas and concepts about diversity they had not explored before. Jonathan Kozel taught us about the atrocious conditions in American schools, that the schools of poverty were so much different than the schools of plenty. Nell Doddings taught us about the theory and practice of care as a new concept in education. Linda Darling-Hanman taught us about all the different ways that teachers are taught and the ways that they must be taught in order to make the most difference with children. Sonia Nieto taught us about multicultural education and educating Latino children. Herb Cole taught us about 36 children that taught him lessons in his life. Terrence Roberts taught us what courage is all about, as being part of the Little Rock Nine. These lecturers form the who's who of American education. Terrence Roberts certainly touched all of us last year with his presence. Laura Marasco and the Riall Committee have done a fabulous job in selecting the lecturers for this series. Will Richardson will make a difference to you tonight, too. I give you Laura Marasco, Chair of the Riall Lecture Committee.
Good evening. I bring you welcome from the new and the old Riall Committee. I'd like to acknowledge that our outgoing Riall Committee has been responsible for the following Riall lecturers over the past 3 years. Our first one, Crystal Kirkendall, Sonia Nieto, Terrence Roberts, Michael Tisserand, and Luann Johnson came to Salisbury because of the hard work of the committee and the dedication to bring you the finest in education. I'd like the committee members of the outgoing committee please to stand. Ted Gilkey, Ken Milner, Diana Wagner, and Claudia Burgess can't be with us tonight. Please give them a round of applause for their work. Bridging the new Riall Committee, this past committee has brought Will Richardson to our attention, and it's the new Riall Committee that made his visit possible. I'd like to introduce to you tonight, and please stand when your name is called, our new members of the Riall: Dr. Gwen Beagle, Ernie Bond, Keith Connors, and Mr. Ron Sires. And a special thanks this evening goes to Chris DeMond in the back. Chris, without you, our technology wouldn't happen. Thank you so much. And thanks to all the other departments at the university that come together. Each year when I stand here, I thank horticulture and catering and the parking and the police and printing and copying and productions and PR, all of these people who have a big part of making this series happen. You know, tonight you're going to hear from Will Richardson, and you're going to hear a lot about social networking as it applies to technology and the web. But coming from a big Italian family, social networking isn't a new concept to me. It's just performed in a little bit different way. So when I saw the title for Will Richardson's book, I thought, I'm going to call my 8 grandchildren and I'm going to ask them if they know what a web is, what a wiki is, what a blog is. So I made my calls around the country, and all my grandchildren, 13 and older, really made me proud. They were right into all of this new technology. However, my 11-year-old twins in Colorado had a big discussion. They got on the 2 phones at the house, and they said to me, I know what a blog is, Nona. They call me Nona, which is Italian for grandma. I know what a blog is, and I know what a podcast is, but I never heard of wiki before. Do you mean Wookie? And I said, no, I know what a Wookie is. And they said, good, because Wookiees can't wiki whatever it is. And the other grandson got on the phone and said to his brother, well, how do you know? If a Wookie can lead a starship in outer space, why can't he wiki? So I got my introduction to just how far kids can go with their thinking and how nothing can really stop them. And I think tonight we're all going to be just really enriched, challenged, and maybe stretched a little for thinking about technology not simply as a source to get information from, but how to contribute to that and become part of the technology revolution. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker tonight, Mr. Will Richardson.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for coming tonight. I have to tell you at the outset, I'm on my 3rd laptop today, believe it or not. The tech guy comes to town, and what happens? The technology fries on him. This morning, I lost my video card on my MacBook. I got it all set up on another laptop, which we brought in here. Those of you who were in here early probably saw me feverishly up here working on it. We had to shut that one down, so this is number 3. So as a Mac person on a PC, on a Windows machine right now, I'm kind of driving on the wrong side of the road. So if I make some wrong turns, that's probably why. It is always fun to get together in front of a group of educators, and it's especially fun to get in front of some students as well, because I was meeting with a group of students before earlier tonight talking about social networking, and I said to them, you know, you are basically the best BS meters that I have. If I'm talking about social networking and I'm not telling truths, then you'll be the ones who'll be able to filter it and be able to figure it out. So hopefully tonight the message that I have will resonate and will come across as realistic and also challenging, and will be one that will make you think, will stretch you a little bit, because I think this is a really unique moment for us as educators in trying to deal with some technologies that in many ways are transforming the world, certainly not just education. I am a longtime public school educator. I was an English teacher for 18 years, an administrator for 3 years. And I used a lot of these technologies like blogs and wikis in my classroom. I saw some of the transformative potentials of them. And I really do believe that we are at the precipice of an opportunity as educators to expand the way we think about classrooms, to expand the way we think about teaching and learning in general. And that's what I hope to do tonight. I hope to bring you kind of a message that does make you think differently about either the profession that you're in right now or the one that maybe you've chosen to pursue if you're a student in the classroom. So let me start this presentation, and I know that there are some of you in the audience who are here because it's an option for a class or whatever, and a couple of you, I heard that you have like a 2-pager that might be due tomorrow. So if that's the case, you can just go to this site on my wiki right here, and there's your 2-pager, basically. It's willrichardson.wikispaces.com. Feel free to take anything you need from there. That is where this presentation is. You can come back and look at this at any time, so you don't need to write down a whole bunch of links and a whole bunch of notes. You can pretty much get it from there. And again, if you don't see it up at the top, it's just willrichardson, one word, .wikispaces.com, and it's not a Wookie, it is a wiki. And the only good news about losing my laptop this morning, if there is any good news, is that I didn't lose my presentation because everything I do is on the web. I want to start by just telling a couple stories, and I want to start with this story. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Ustream.tv. I can't really see with the lights, but how many of you are familiar with Ustream? Do you know what it is? Okay, so only a couple hands are going up. This basically is live television on the web. If I had the equipment, if I had my MacBook running right now, and I had a really good internet connection, basically I could stream this presentation live to the internet. I could get it running in probably about 3 minutes. That's all it takes. Because of the network connections that I have, because of the social networks that I'm in, I could probably put a little note out or a message out that I was streaming this live, and I could get an audience of, I bet you, 50 or 60 people from around the world within about 15 or 20 minutes. And they could be interacting in this particular presentation, because when you're watching Ustream Live, there's a chat box over on the right-hand side. What you're watching right now is an archived presentation of a show that was done the night of the New Hampshire primary earlier this year. Now, I use Skype a lot, which is an online kind of video telephone program. It's free. If you have Skype on your machine and I have Skype on my machine, I can call you up at any time for free. We can do video chat. And they also have a little IM piece of it, too. On the night of the primary, I was actually in Connecticut. I'd done a presentation to a school in Connecticut, and I just got a chat message on my Skype program, and it said, hey, Will, why don't you come and listen to us talk about the results from the New Hampshire primary? And if you remember, that was the night that Hillary Clinton was supposed to lose. It was supposed to be over that night, but she pulled an upset, actually, and she ended up continuing her campaign. But when I clicked on the link in Skype, this is where I came. And this is pretty much what I saw, except, again, there was a text box over there, a chat room, over there, where people were typing, and they were kind of doing call-outs. And there were about 40 or 50 people from around the world, literally, who were calling out. They were from Canada. One was from Argentina. One was from Australia, all across the States. And there was a really interesting conversation going on. You can see that in this archived show, there's a person down here in the bottom left who's running the show. And in the background, this might change or it might not, depending on how long we watch this, but you can pull up your desktop. You can actually also have Skype conversations going on in the background. And at one point, actually, there was a voice conversation going on between a teacher down in Georgia and a student up in New York, and they were arguing about the merits of teaching evolution versus creationism in schools. They were literally starting to yell at one another. People in the chat room were typing in all caps at one point. They were like screaming at one another. This conversation was going on. It was really riveting, I have to tell you. It was, for the 30 or 40 minutes that I watched it, much better than Wolf Blitzer on CNN, right? It was much, much more engaging. And I really learned a lot about not only the campaign, but also about people's feelings about what was going on, real people having real conversations. Now, here's the deal, right? And you can probably have made this out already because we've been watching it for a little bit, but the person who's running this show down on the bottom left-hand corner is not Wolf Blitzer, is not someone who is a political pundit, not someone who's necessarily known by anyone, except perhaps in my network, because it is a 14-year-old in his basement in Vermont. His name is Arthas Aria, which is not his real name. He goes by a pseudonym because he knows how to protect himself. And basically, he loves politics. And he decided on this night that he was going to start a live TV show to the web. And because of his network, he got about 50 people from around the world to watch it with him and to engage in that conversation. Now, I ask you, how has the world changed? If our kids can do this from their bedrooms, can have live audiences, can engage in conversations with people who share their passions regardless of where they are, regardless of where they come from if they have access to the internet. I think it's a very different world. Oh, and by the way, live streaming now is something that can be done from your phone. And if that doesn't give you some chills, I don't know what will, right? Think about what the world is going to be like when every phone can do live streaming to the internet. Think of the types of things we're going to see. It's not all going to be good stuff like what Arthas is doing. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how that transpires. I want to talk about Laura Stockman, too. This is a favorite one of mine. Laura is 11 years old. She lives in Buffalo. And she decided, her grandfather died, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, and she decided last December that she was going to do one good deed a day during December leading up until Christmas. She was going to do one piece of volunteer work or something. She was going to make a difference, 25 days to make a difference in the community in which she lives. So there are a lot of kids out there who are making a difference. There are a lot of kids out there who are doing volunteer work, helping at the SPCA or whatever else. But the difference with Laura is that she decided to start a blog about it. And this is her blog, 25 Days to Make a Difference. And you can see already, if you look at the top post here, that it's 25 days to make a difference has turned into about 10 months to make a difference. Laura has now continued to work with the elderly and to collect books. She's collected pajamas for homeless shelters. She has collected books for local libraries. She's working with animals in the community. And basically, it's turned into this really neat story of a kid who just really wanted to do something different and do something helpful for her community that we could all kind of tap into and watch. Now, I had the opportunity of seeing Laura, actually. Her mother was a part of a professional development program that we ran in Western New York. And Laura presented on this site, and she was great. She was talking about why she did this, how she did this, and at the end of her presentation, someone raised her hand and she said, "Hey, Laura, can you tell me where do you get your ideas in terms of what to do and how to work in the community?" And she gave an answer that I don't think any of us would guess if we sat here for a couple hours. She said, I ask my readers how I can help out in the community. Now, I'd never heard that answer before, certainly not from an 11-year-old kid, but I want to show you where Laura's readers come from to get some sense of the scope of why she asks her readers. This is a map, and you can see the dots here represent people. Some of the bigger dots represent hundreds of people who come from literally every place on the globe. They come from just about every continent, from China, Russia, South America. It looks like there are people in boats out there on the ocean somewhere who are coming to Laura's blog somehow. I don't quite know how they do that. But imagine an 11-year-old kid who is tapped into a network of other people who are philanthropists and volunteers and community people who work in the community, right? Imagine what she is learning about the world. The fact that she can connect into the expertise and wisdom of these people simply because she has a blog, simply because she is being transparent about the work that she's doing. It's very, very cool, and it's changed the way that she thinks about the world and about learning. Now, here's the deal. Laura's blog is inaccessible at Laura's school. You can't even get to it inside of her filter. They won't even let her show it in her school because it is blocked. It is filtered. It's not something that is a reality for her particular school existence. Now, one final story, and this one will probably resonate with many of you. I have a friend, Warren, who has two daughters. One's going to be a junior in high school. Her name is Sarah. And a couple months ago, we all decided to go out to dinner, or go out to lunch, actually. And the entire time at lunch, Sarah was engaged in, what do you think? Texting on her phone, right? The entire time. And it was kind of funny. I was watching her. She'd text something. She'd put it down. As soon as she put the phone down, it would vibrate. She'd pick it up. She'd read it. She'd text some more. She'd put it down, vibrate. I said, Sarah, just keep it in your hand, okay, please, because it's a little... and I was really just interested, and I was, because I text a little bit. I don't text a lot, but I send, a few text messages a day maybe. But so finally I looked at her and I said, Sarah, any chance you know how many text messages you send in and out every day, or you send and receive every day? And I was struck immediately by the fact that her face contorted, and you could see she was doing the math, right? She was sitting there kind of going in and out, and she was like, yeah, like this. She goes, I'm going to guess probably about 600. And I said, 600 text messages a day? She said, yep. She goes, that's probably about right. I said, are you ever without your phone? She said, no, I'm never without my phone. And I looked at Warren. I said, you do have the unlimited plan, don't you, for text messages? He said, yeah, we got that after the first week. And it turned out, actually, that this was a little bit of a different day because on the way over to lunch, she had just been asked out by this really cute guy whose ex-girlfriend had already heard about it and was texting nasty messages to Sarah on her phone as she was sitting there at lunch. And meantime, she had 3 or 4 friends who were also engaged in this conversation. So she was connected to about 5 people through her phone while she was trying to, also interact with us. It didn't work. That part didn't work out very well. But she was connected. She's definitely connected. And she's connected in a way, a lot of people are calling that hyperconnectivity now, that we don't get away from the technology. We don't get away from the connections that we have in our lives. And that might not be a great thing or it might be a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely a different thing. And there's a lot of balancing that goes into that. So, this world is shifting. The ways that most kids, not all kids, and there are disparities, there are divides here certainly by race and by wealth that make these technologies accessible to some but not to others. So we can't make totally general statements about kids' uses of technologies here. But by and large, kids' uses of these technologies are very different from the ways in which most adults use them. And it is, I think, it is turning out to be what Clay Shirky calls a tectonic shift. This is an NYU professor who wrote a great book, I think. It's called Here Comes Everybody. And if you really want to get a read that will contextualize these changes in a very clear way, I would really suggest this book. His thesis is that what's different now is that we have the ability to very easily form groups around whatever it is that we are passionate about. That physical space is no longer relevant in terms of our ability to connect to other people with whom we can do work, we can learn from, whatever else. And that particular shift really does make a big difference in the ways that we have to look at these technologies. If you come down here, this is the first chapter. And again, this is linked from that site at the beginning, so you can come and read this if you want. But he does call this a tectonic shift. And I just want to read a little bit down here at the very bottom, because I think it's relevant to this conversation, where he says, the change will not be limited to any particular set of institutions or functions. For any given organization, the important questions are, when will the change happen and what will change? The only two answers we can rule out are never and nothing. The ways in which any given institution will find its situation transformed will vary, but the various local changes are manifestations of a single deep source. And here it is. Newly capable groups are assembling, and they are working without the managerial imperative and outside the previous strictures that bounded their effectiveness. These changes will transform the world everywhere groups of people come together to accomplish something, which is to say everywhere, which is to say schools. There's no question that what we do in our classrooms is going to be challenged and changed by this ability for people to connect outside of the physical space. And we really have to begin to understand the implications of this, even though it's very difficult to figure out what the futures of our kids are going to look like. And this is my lens for this conversation. These are my kids. This is Tucker. He's now 9. Tess is 11. I'm trying to figure out, what is their world going to look like? What is the environment that they are going to have to learn and work in? And how is it going to be different from their environment today? I have to tell you, I am not a very happy public school parent right now, I'll be honest with you. And it has nothing to do with the people in the room who care for my kids very much. They nurture them, they keep them safe, and they are good people, they're friends of mine. It has nothing really to do with them as much as it does a system that does not allow them to even think about what their future might be like. A system driven by standards and driven by assessments that are preparing my kids extremely well for today, but not very well, I don't think, for what their world is going to look like, which I think is going to be very, very different. Now, why do I think that's going to be different? Well, I think it's going to be different because a lot of things are changing right now, and it's playing out in some ways that we can see pretty clearly. If whether you like Barack Obama or not, you have to admit that the things that he has done in terms of social networking tools, I don't know what that is. Here we go, right? I told you I'm going to be driving on the wrong side of the road. What he has done with social networking tools in his campaign is really, really different and really incredible. He's raised over, I think it's $200 million now. He's got 2.5 million people who have literally invested in this campaign. And the astounding number here is that of all that money that he's raised, about 95% of it was given in under increments of $200. That is just unheard of. There are people who are literally invested, and it is because of the social network. This is my blog on the Obama site. Any of you can have your own blog where you can meet with other people, form groups around the things that you are interested or passionate about in the context of the campaign. Whether that's education or healthcare, the environment, it doesn't matter. And you can see over here, I have my neighborhood, my groups, my friends. There are events over here. I have fundraising. I have my blog. I have a network that is built for me that is literally, we'll see, I guess, in about 4 weeks, but will literally challenging the status quo in terms of a model for politics. This is not the kind of door-to-door phone call type of connection and networking that has been really symbolic of campaigns in the past. This is very different. And here's another example. I love this story. This is a guy who was running for state senate in Kansas, and his advisors told him you need probably about $26,000 in order to make a viable run for this seat, right? And he goes, how am I going to raise $26,000? And I said, well, it's easy. Just find 50 people to give you $500. And he said, I don't even know 2 people who have $500 who can give me this, Kim, right? So, but what he did was he was smart. He went back and he said basically on this cartoon, he said, I only know 2. And he said, okay, then we'll need more people who believe in the same things that you do to donate less, right? To believe in the same things that you do, to form a group around what it is that you believe in to donate less. So he said, okay, I'll do the math. If I only ask people not for $500, but for $8.27, then I need about 3,000 people. Well, maybe we can do that. Guess how long it took him to raise $25,000 in increments of $8.27? 3 days. Guess how much money he raised in the 3 weeks before the reporting deadline on this particular campaign? $90,000 in increments of $8.27, primarily. It is a different model when you can group people, when you can connect to people, when you can network around an idea that other people can buy into. So politics is definitely changing right now. Media is absolutely changing, right? I was a journalism major at Ohio University. I could never get a job as a journalist right now because of the different ways in which we have to understand that this is now a participatory media. How many of you have phones with cameras in them? Okay, so I'm going to guess at least 50, 60%. You're all reporters. Congratulations. Something happens out the window, out on the street right here. You can go out and you can take a picture of it. You can have it up online. You can write a blog post. I could have a blog post and a photo. I could create a story about that particular event before a traditional reporter even knows that the event occurred. And you know this. You know, CNN wants to buy your photos, wants to buy your videos, right? When I was touring one of the buildings here today, they were bringing in apparently, potential applicants or whatever, and they were looking in the TV studios and stuff, and there was this group of six kids, and every one of them had their cameras out taking pictures of the TV studio, right? They were recording it. So this is a participatory environment now. It's not something where we just read the paper, we participate. So I love this article. This is in USA Today. This is about people who make more in their retirement selling Google ads on their blogs than they actually made in their careers. So this guy made about $85,000 as a handyman. He retired, started a blog, started selling Google ads. He now makes $120,000 a year. And basically, he just writes in his blog. That's all he does. And the story's great in here. It comes in and talks about how you do it. You want to start a site, this is how you can do it, and goes through this whole process. But here's the difference. USA Today, now, every story on its website is a blog post because anyone can come in and comment and participate around that particular story if that story interests them, if they have a particular passion or interest about that. So you can come down here and you can read all these things, and there are people who are asking questions, they're pushing back against the reporter, they're giving more information. But the reason I show this one that I love is that here is the guy who's making $120,000 that's cited in this article, and he comes in this comment and he says, you know what, you didn't quite get it right. You made it sound like it was really easy to start making big bucks on Google ads, when in actuality I had to work 7 years. I had to work a long time before I could make this happen. And so he can come in and he can set the record straight. It is a participatory exercise right now. How many of you know Surf the Channel? All right. And you're proud of it, I hope, because Surf the Channel is a place where basically you can come now and you can see any TV show, just about any movie, any piece of media that you want. You can come here and you can at least attempt to watch it here on Surf the Channel. So if I come in here and I go into the TV section, hopefully this will come up. But there's a listing of all the TV shows that are here. And basically you can get, we'll see if this comes up, but there are links here to even things like Little House on the Prairie. There are 135 episodes of Little House on the Prairie that you can link to, that you can find in here. The Larry Sanders Show, stuff that's on just on cable that you wouldn't normally get, right? Now here's the deal. The Wall Street Journal went to the guys who developed this site, and they said, you know what? This is illegal. This is piracy. You guys are pirates. You can't do this. And the guys who organized the site, they said, no, we're not pirates. We don't own any of this stuff. We're just a TV guide to pirated material on the web. That's it. You can't touch us. And they said, oh, and by the way, the other reason you can't is because we're in Sweden. And we don't have the same laws you do, so too bad. Too bad. Copyright is now international. How's that going to work, huh? How are we going to do that, right? So this is obviously illegal in some respects, unethical in most respects, but this is the nature of media these days. Think about being a music company. How many copies of any particular MP3 do you have to release for potentially anyone in the world who wants that piece of music to get it? One. That's it. You release one copy and potentially anyone in the world who wants that will eventually get it. I don't have to press 5 million CDs anymore. I don't have to release any of that stuff, and you know, I won't ask for a show of hands, but I would guess there may be a couple people in here who have probably downloaded music illegally and have shared it with others in ways that probably don't fall within copyright laws and intellectual property laws, right? But that is the reality of the world right now. And so media companies can't figure out right now how to change. This is a copying machine, basically. This is a printing press. Any of you that have a computer have a printing press. If you thought the world got weird when Gutenberg invented his press, where for 100 years the Catholic Church had no clue what to do. There were unemployed scribes walking around, nothing to do, right? The world is changing here big time in terms of media because of the ways in which we use this particular device to make copies of things, whether those copies are legal or not. So media is definitely changing as well. Businesses have to change. Businesses cannot sustain in the same model that they have because guess what? Businesses are not about products any longer. Businesses are about the conversations around the products, right? So this is the Amazon Kindle. Any of you own a Kindle? Okay. So the Kindle is the ebook reader that Amazon has put out. You can download about 1,000 books to this particular device. You can go to Starbucks and download it. It's wireless, right? You can read blogs and newspapers and some other things on it. Now, I was an English teacher, and I'm really interested in what the book is going to look like. I don't really know what the book is going to evolve into. I have a feeling it's going to be different from the books that we read right now, but I'm not sure what it is. So I was interested in getting this, but when it came out, it was about $400, and I said, you know what? I'm going to wait to see what people think about it, because I'll learn from the collective wisdom of the users whether or not this product is something that I might want to buy. Now, here's my dilemma, right? 4,716 customer reviews later, it's got 4 stars, and that's really bumming me out. If it was 3 stars, I wouldn't even think twice about it. If it was 5 stars, I would have bought it 6 months ago, right? But it's 4 stars. It's right there in that kind of middle ground where I don't really know if I should buy it or not. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should go to Amazon and buy a book or a Kindle or whatever else simply based on the number of stars, because it's more complex than that, right? You don't know how many Amazon employees are in here giving it 5 stars. You don't know how many Sony ebook reader people are in here giving it 1 star to bring the rating down. It's more complex than that. But look, if you're a company right now and you don't keep track of the conversation around your product, because guess what? We can group up around your product. If you don't keep track of what we're saying about it, you're in trouble these days. You're not going to be able to float. And any of you playing Spore, the new video game that's come out? Okay, so Spore is this brand new game from the guy that did SimCity. It got really great reviews until people found out what the licensing agreements were. So if you go on Amazon right now, Spore, this great game, is getting 1.5 stars. And it has nothing to do with the game. It has everything to do with the fact that you can only put it on a certain number of machines and that it's not a very flexible licensing agreement. So the conversation matters. It's huge right now. And it's just another instance of something that's changing out there. The models have to change. So look, politics is changing, media is changing, businesses are changing. There's a lot happening right now because of our ability to connect. But here's our problem. Education is not changing in any real way. Basically, Alvin Toffler, the guy that wrote Future Shock, was quoted in an article last year in Edutopia. He said, you know, if you're a policeman and you have a speed gun and you're clocking cars as they go down the road, the one that goes by at 100 miles an hour, that's business. The one that chugs by at 10 miles an hour, that's education, right? We're just going down the road. We know where we're going. We don't want any big turns. We know where the bar is. We know how to get over it, basically. But the reality of the world is that people are using these technologies in ways that we do not yet understand. National School Boards Association last year, of all kids who are on the internet, all adolescents who are on the internet, 79% of them have a MySpace or a Facebook page, and I've seen percentages that are even higher than that. I'm not going to ask this group because I think probably the percentage in this room is going to be pretty high, but I speak to a lot of audiences that are just K through 12 teachers only, and I am always surprised if I get more than 10% of that audience that has a MySpace or a Facebook page. There is a huge disconnect in the ways that educators understand social networking tools and the ways that the kids in their classrooms are using them. The kids in their classrooms, and many of you, are using them in ways that are really kind of foreign to us. You're using them, as is in this example, to grieve for people when they meet an untimely death. This is ex-student by the name of Mike, who was at my old school, graduated about 3 years ago, but was killed in a car accident last year, unfortunately. And within hours, this Facebook page was up. People sharing photos, people sharing stories, and even still today, they're coming in, 402 members, and people remembering Mike. This is not the way that most adults would think of using social networking sites. This would not be our first kind of attempt or first reaction to these kinds of changes. So our students are using these tools in ways that we don't understand. And we block, we filter, we don't let them use these tools in school. We don't let them use their cell phones. We don't let them text. We don't let them IM. I can't tell you how many times I get stuck behind buses coming back from my office. And I can't tell you how many kids I see coming off the bus walking up their driveways like this, right? because they are disconnected during the day, and when they leave, they get connected. And again, can't be a blanket statement about every child, about every student, because that's not the case. But for many students, that is the case. New York City, just to tell you a quick story, New York City has such a problem with cell phones. They have decided to ban all cell phones from schools. I was working at a low-performing school in Manhattan, 3,000 kids, and I spent a day with the kids in the classroom, and we started talking about cell phones, showing them some of the things that they could do with their phones, and they were like, well, we can't even bring cell phones in here. And I saad, well, what do you do with your phones? Leave them home? They go, no, we can't leave them home. We have 20, 30-minute subway rides. We come to school every morning. We can't leave our cell phones at home. I said, well, what do you do with them? And you know what they told me? They go to the bodegas and delis across the street from the school in the morning, and they check their phones. They get a little ticket. At the end of the day, they take the ticket and give $3 to the deli owner to get their phones out of hock. Right? Now, you do the math. I asked them, how many kids at this school have cell phones? They said about 90%. 2,700 kids times $3 per day times 180 days a year. You do the math. Think of how much money those kids are spending to put their phones into hock, because we can't, as a system, figure out how to help them use those phones to learn. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of learning that can be done with phones. There's a lot of things that we can do. The technologies are changing really quickly. Schools don't know. Where do we spend our budgets? Do we buy smart boards? Do we buy other things, right? How do we invest in technologies that are changing very rapidly? There's a link on here I could show you where if you have a Wii, right, we mentioned the Wii, you can take your Wii remote and you can turn it into a smart board for no dollars, right? It's a hack, and there's a guy with a video on how to do it. So we're paying thousands of dollars for smart boards, and I'm not saying smart boards aren't a good investment, but there are technologies that are changing right now that are just flying by us. And the things that we buy today aren't necessarily the things that are going to be around tomorrow. My favorite story, I had a really great opportunity being in Australia last year. My favorite story when I was there is that the Australian government actually spent $84 million on a porn filter for schools that was hacked in under 30 minutes by a 13-year-old. And then they fixed it, and then he hacked it again in 40 minutes. So we are trying, and I have to tell you, I really believe this. Our kids are less safe by our attempts to filter and block the world from them than they would be if we taught them how to deal with some of those issues. I'm not saying we open up the floodgates and let everything in. But our kids are not getting any teachable moments. They're not getting any context for the types of things that are coming at them, and so they're learning it on their own when they get away from school, and I think it's making them less safe. So look, we have challenges right now because of these technologies. They are pushing us. They are pushing our kids in ways that we're not necessarily used to. This may be the first time in history that our kids are the ones who are driving the bus in terms of new technologies. And they are. They're at the front of the bus, and we're kind of hanging on in the back in large measure. And they're not driving very well in large measure. They're careening down the road, right? But we're not pulling ourselves up to the front very quickly, and I think that that's hugely problematic right now because the world is shifting and changing in a lot of these different ways. Now, this is my blog. This is Weblog Ed, and this is where I started 7 years ago blogging about education and technology. And I say this a lot, and people look at me kind of funny, but aside from having my kids, this has been the most transformative experience in my life, without question. And I don't say that in front of my wife very often, but it's the truth. Everything that I have thought about in terms of teaching and learning and education has changed because of this. And I come in here and I write about these technologies, and people come in and for some reason they comment. And they come in and they push the conversation. They ask questions. Sometimes they agree, sometimes they disagree. But they are constantly engaging in a conversation that makes me think really deeply about the things that I'm writing about. And so you can come in here and read through these. Now, this is really humbling to me, the fact that I have this audience. But what's even more, I think, important to understand about this is that much like Laura's cluster map, I'm just going to show you mine here real fast. Much like Laura's cluster map, this is my classroom. This is my classroom. And here's the big difference. Please don't miss this difference, right? The reason these people are in my classroom is because they want to be. The only reason I can think of that they come to my blog is because they too are in some way engaged in answering the question, how do these technologies change teaching and learning? That's the only thing I can figure out. They wouldn't be there if they didn't want to. So not only is this my classroom, but this is a classroom filled with people who are motivated to learn about the same things that I am. I taught English for 18 years. I must have taught at least 50 sections of journalism in that time. I was lucky if I ever had 2 or 3 kids in my classroom at any given time who were passionate about learning journalism. Passionate. The rest of them were there because they needed an English elective, because they had friends who were in the class, because they heard the class was good, they liked me, whatever else. Can you imagine if I'd had 25 kids in my class who were passionate about learning journalism? But physical space does that. Physical space makes that very difficult to do. This system that we have makes that extremely difficult to do. This doesn't. Now, our kids understand this already. They are not waiting for us to figure this out. They are going to places like Fanfiction. And they are networking. They are finding other people with whom they can share their passions. And Fanfic is a great site if you don't know about it. Basically, if you have a particular book that you love, you can come in here and write another chapter to the book. If there's a movie, you can write a sequel, a TV show that you really like, you can write another episode. You can put it up there for other people who share that passion or share that interest to write about. You can guess which book is the most popular, can't you? Harry Potter, 373,258 pieces of content that have been written to extend the Harry Potter stories at this particular site, fanfic.net. And there are other fan fiction sites just for Harry Potter out there. If you come into the Harry Potter section here, there might be an ad that comes up that I'm going to have to click through here. And I'm not saying that this is necessarily appropriate for classrooms, but you can see all these, right? So here we have one that has called Say. There it comes. Let me just click through this real fast. If it comes up, there we go. So Say, you have Cub. Let's look at this one, okay? Cub, 46 chapters, 110,000 words in this particular story, okay? Now you might think that 110,000 words is pretty much over, right? It's going to be pretty much played out. Here are all the chapters. You can read all of them, right? Go down through here. You can read the whole story right here if you want to get into it. But here's what I love. 458 reviews, and I haven't looked at this one, but I'm going to guess that they're pretty similar to what you'll find here, and that are people who are just supportive about with the writing going on. Awesome, brilliant chapter. This is so good. You're my friend. Awesome chapter. Update soon. Can you imagine? Oh, and by the way, a study was done on this particular part of fanfic, the Harry Potter room. Over 50% of the people who are involved here are kids, are adolescents, right? Can you imagine being an adolescent who loves Harry Potter, writing Harry Potter stories for a room full of people who love Harry Potter? Can you imagine what that's like to share that passion and to get in there and really engage in those conversations? I know 2 kids who are fanfic just nuts because they love the environment. And this has nothing to do with school. Nothing to do with school. The kids who report out using this site, none of them use it in the context of school. They do it all on their own because guess what? School blocks it. This is not something that they want to do. Now, when we think of social networking, we think of this. And I hope this doesn't upset anyone, but this is MySpace, right? This is a girl, hopefully not in the audience, a girl from Wilmette, Illinois, who's kind of doing this, the MySpace, right? This is the MySpace disaster, right? The one that we all kind of picture. The scantily clad pictures, the kissing her girlfriends, kissing her boyfriends. If I turned it up, there'd be really bad rap music in the background. I mean, this is, this is the type of thing that we think of when we think of social networking. This is what we just want to go to sleep when we see this, right? Okay, now here's the deal. She probably, I'm going to guess, but she's probably not thinking too much about her future college admissions officers who are going to probably try to find out what she's been up to on her MySpace page. Certainly not her future future employers who are probably going to take a look to see what they can find. She might be, expecting her future mate to look at this. I'm not sure. But here is the reality. Here's the reality. My kids are going to be searched for. They are going to be Googled over and over and over again in their lives. That is their reality. Many of the people in this room right now are being Googled. You're being searched for. People are trying to find what is your digital portfolio, and they are making assumptions about what they find. There's no question about that. I heard some stories about that earlier tonight, right? Now, here's the deal. I do a lot of work with principals and superintendents, and I say to them, so let me ask you something. When you're hiring, when you're going in and you're looking for teachers for your schools, do you Google them? Do you look for this? And they say, absolutely. More and more of them are saying, absolutely, we do. And I say, well, why do you do that? And they say, well, we just don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to find this because we don't want this to become a problem. I say, well, what if you find something good? What if you find good pedagogy, good project, good classroom stuff? They say, well, that's good, all right? If there are positive things out there, we put them on the right side of the ledger. Now, here's the thing. After that conversation, I always ask them this question. I always say, okay, so tell me this. What are you doing to prepare the kids who are in your school to sit in that chair in about 6 or 7 years and apply for a job at your school? And they say, nothing. Nothing. They're not doing anything to prepare their own kids to apply for a job at their own school. Now, I got to tell you, I don't think her mother is teaching her how to use MySpace. I don't think so. I don't think her school is. Any of you know anyone who teaches MySpace in terms of using it well? Not one hand, right? So we cannot be surprised at this, because this girl and millions like her, and boys too, are not getting any instruction on how to do MySpace well. And look, you can do MySpace well. Here's Meg Cabot, Princess Diaries. The reason I show this is because a couple months ago, my 11-year-old daughter started reading Meg Cabot books. And I'm like going, oh yeah, this is great. First thing I did, I took her to Meg Cabot's MySpace page. Why? Because I want Tess to see that Meg Cabot has some really good stuff here that she can get engaged in. There's videos, there's links to other books, there's conversations going on. But I also want Tess to see that, guess what? You can do MySpace well. You can make MySpace a place that you're proud of. A place that when people go and look for it, you'll go, yeah, find that. I want you to. But she is not being taught that anywhere in her K through 12 curriculum, nor is my son. And I think that in these days, in this particular moment, is highly problematic. Now, there are some kids who are getting this. This is a girl by the name of Hillary, a 6th grader in Manitoba, Snow Lake, who's 8 hours north of the nearest airport. Her teacher is a guy by the name of Clarence Fisher, who is someone in my network, someone who I learn from all the time because he blogs about his experiences in the classroom. And he's just talks about this in a way that really makes a lot of sense. So this is Hillary's blog, and she's writing about this Nata Village blog, which is a blog about what it's like to grow up and live in a community where, an African community that is being ravaged by HIV and AIDS. And if you read this particular blog, you'll see that many times there are uplifting stories, but just as many times there are sad stories. The videos are somewhat difficult to watch. Hillary comes in and she writes about this blog on her blog, and she says, you know, our lives are so different from what they're going through. They have to make toys out of cans and wire. We get more in a week than they get in their entire lives. And for a 6th grader, she writes pretty compellingly, and she writes on this blog that is open to the world. Anyone can see this. Anyone can comment on this. Clarence doesn't moderate the comments on here, but he monitors them. He's a good teacher. He makes sure that what's coming in is safe, but he also, guess what, teaches Hillary in 6th grade how to deal with her own comments, how to look for the ones that may be inappropriate, what to do if inappropriate comments come in, how to make sure that she writes in ways that probably lessens the potential of inappropriate comments. And what I love about this one is, in the 7 responses to her blog here are 2 people from Nata Village in Africa who come in and say, hey, Hillary, thanks so much for writing about us. Really appreciate that you're reading. So what is Hillary learning? 6th grader. She's learning that she has a global voice, that people around the world can read what she has to say, and she's adding dots to her map. She's beginning to understand how to make connections so that she can learn from those people, so those people can be a part of their network. So look, learning is changing. Learning is not a time and place event. It is not a physical space event any longer. It is anytime, anywhere, if we have a connection. And Clarence, I love the metaphor he uses. He says, my classroom has thin walls. Thin walls. We break through those walls all the time. My kids are in very thickly walled classrooms. No question. If I showed you a cluster map or one of those maps of dots on my kid's classroom, there would only be one. Right on top of it. Right on top of it in New Jersey where I live. So learning is changing. Now, information's changing too. How many of you are smarter than a 5th grader? No one? Okay, we got 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 brave souls. So, I don't know when it was, about a year ago now, I was watching it, and the question was, how many sides to a trapezoid? And I had no clue how many sides to a trapezoid. I remembered hearing the term. I couldn't remember one time in my adult life ever needing to know what a trapezoid was. I'm sorry if there are any math teachers out there in the audience. But, and I know, by the way, that when I was in 5th grade, I passed that test. I got that question right, because I was a good 5th grade student. I was. But I had no clue. But what I did know how to do was to get on my phone and send a text message that said define trapezoid and send it to 46645. Any of you know what that spells? G-O-O-G-L, Google, right? 15 seconds later, Google rang me back, and it said the trapezoid is a 4-sided figure with 2 parallel sides, and it even gave me a link that I could click on so I could go to the website and I could find the context for the answer that it gave me. So guess what? I am smarter than a 5th grader because I knew how to take the phone out of my pocket to get the answer to the question that I needed when I needed it. Now, my daughter and my son right now, is being forced to learn the 50 state capitals. Now, when my daughter went through this, I had lots of conversations with my school superintendent, who I know very well at this point. And And I said to her, I said, Laura, just tell me why Tess needs to memorize the 50 state capitals. And she said, well, she needs to work on her memorization skills. It's really important for her to do that. And I said, okay, look, she loves horses. She's in Pony Club, right? Let her memorize every type of horse there is in the world. She would gladly do that. She'll remember it all her life. And, you know, we went back and forth. And you know what the answer I finally got was, right? She said, well, she can't do that. I said, why not? She goes, well, because horses aren't on the test, right? The capital, Montana, might be on the 4th grade state assessment. And we have to make sure that Tess knows what that is. Now, God forbid Tess wakes up when she's 33 years old somewhere and doesn't know the capital of Montana, right? Her life might be over at that point. I'm not exactly sure. And look, I'm being a little facetious here, and I understand that. But why are we teaching so much content that is simply memorization instead of teaching kids to use technologies that they can take out of their pockets? And by the way, the technology that my daughter will have in a couple years when she breaks me down finally and gets her own cell phone will be hundreds of times more powerful than what I'm holding in my hand right now. Her ability to learn using this particular device, and by the way, the one statistic that I love to tell is the one that 10 years ago, half the people in the world had never made a phone call. Today, half the people in the world own one of these. This technology is going to be transformative, whether we like it or not. And yet nowhere in her curriculum is there any instruction on how to use this. Now, this is because we have built this system that says information is scarce. If you don't get trapezoid in 5th grade, you may not get it again. If you don't get the capital Montana in 4th grade, well, oh boy, you know, got lots of luck, right? And you know, and it's because we think you can't find the capital Montana anywhere else. Well, the news is that you can. And if you don't believe that, go to MIT OpenCourseWare. Every one of MIT's courses right now, all 1,800 of them, are online for free for you to take right now. Anything that you might be interested in, here are all the departments, right? You can come down through here, and again, we'll see how quickly this loads. Hopefully it comes up fairly fast here. But there's aerospace, there's astronautics, mathematics, there's biology. We'll look at some of the biology, intro to biogenetics, avoiding genomic instability, DNA replication, the cell cycle, and cancer. If you want that one, you can see that. If you go to the Intro to Bio course here from the fall 2004, what you get is, hopefully this is going to come up. Oh, please don't freeze on me. Ooh, be nice. Yeah, well, we're going to have to see. I might have toasted something here. But I'll tell you what you get. You get the syllabus. You get all the readings. You get all the assignments. You get all the exams. You get all the answers to the exams, by the way. You get all, and if you want them, there is a video of every lecture that the professor gave in the delivery of this course in the fall 2004 for free. For free. And every one of MIT's courses is online. Now, some of them are not built out quite that much. Oh, this is not good. Huh? Oh, wait, there we go. It did something. There we go. Okay, good. Syllabus, calendar, readings, recitations, exams, just to prove it. There it is. There are all the solutions. And all the video lectures, too. Here's a lecture of every class that professor gave in the delivery of that course. Now, look, content is not scarce any longer. It's not. Content is everywhere. And the other thing is, content is always changing. Content is not static, and we teach it like it's static. We teach kids. There are millions of kids in this country, if we brought them back into, many of them sitting in this audience, who if we brought them back into school, gave them the standardized assessment that asked them how many planets there are in the solar system, they would get it wrong. Because we taught them there were 9, and then Pluto got kicked out, and now there are only 8. And next week there may be 12, depending on how we define planets, right? So we cannot look at information as if it's static. It's not. It's changing. And so this is the poster child for that point, isn't it? Wikipedia. And as I was talking to those students today, they told me, well, we can't cite Wikipedia. And I'm not giving anybody here grief about not being able to cite Wikipedia, but in the next breath I said, but you use Wikipedia, right? And they go, oh, yeah, all the time, right? So let's not, you know, I ask this question all the time. Any of you know anyone who teaches Wikipedia in a classroom? No hands. One hand. We got one. Teaches Wikipedia. Look, Wikipedia comes up top 5 on just about any Google search you do now. There's a link to Wikipedia, right? And it's .org. And I got to tell you, so many of our kids think that .org sites are better than .com sites for some reason. Ooh, .org, top 5 on Google, we're there, right? That's as far as we need to go. But no one's teaching them what Wikipedia is. You can guess, can't you? The most updated site in the last 3 weeks on Wikipedia, who knows what it is? Come on. Sarah Palin. Sarah Palin, right? It was amazing to watch the way that that particular page got updated over and over, minute by minute. And I will tell you something right now, and I think arguably that Sarah Palin entry in Wikipedia is the most comprehensive, accurate information that you're going to find about that particular candidate anywhere on the web right now. Anywhere on the web. Now, can you trust it? No, you can't. Right? You can't totally trust it because you don't know who's going in there doing what at any given moment. But look, study after study after study is showing that 99% of Wikipedia is accurate. It may not be well written. Imagine if you get 1,000 people in the same room trying to write one document. It's not going to be well written, right? But here's the deal. You're using Wikipedia. Our kids are using Wikipedia. My favorite story about all these technologies, about 4 years ago, a teacher told me the story. She said, she gave the assignment, this research assignment. One of her kids didn't really feel like doing it, so he did a really cruddy job on it, and he put it up on Wikipedia and sat back and watched as other people came in and edited it and made it better, right? And then as soon as it was cooked, he took it down and handed it in. Now, I would have given the kid an A, but he failed. Because of that, because it wasn't his work, and I understand that, I understand. But look, we got to teach our kids about Wikipedia. We got to teach them what this is. And content is always changing. If you don't believe that, go look at the recent changes in Wikipedia. And again, if this comes up fairly quickly, you can look at the last 500 changes here. If you don't think content is changing on a regular basis, and I know I'm probably going a little bit over here, but I'll speed up here real fast. Here are the last 500 changes in Wikipedia, right? This particular minute, 36, down to the bottom here, 33. In 3 minutes, 500 changes to Wikipedia. If you do the math, that's about 250,000 changes per day to Wikipedia. 250,000 changes per day. And if the problem here is that there are errors, I hope you're not using the Introduction to the Theory of Computation from MIT. Here are all the errors in that textbook as given to you by the publisher. And you know what the problem is with this, don't you? The problem with this is not that there are errors in the textbook. The problem with this is that we can't fix it. We should be able to fix this. Why can't we fix this? If it's wrong, let's fix it, right? So information is changing. Information, we have to be editors, and not simply editors in terms of comma splices and spellings and things like that. We have to be able to get behind whatever it is that we're looking at. You do a search for Dr. King on Google. This comes up top 5, martinlutherking.org, top5.org. That's it. We're done, right? You look at it, Death of the Dream, King Holiday, attention students, try our Emma K-pop quiz. There are tens of thousands of kids in this country who are citing this particular page in their research about Dr. King, regardless of the fact that when they come over here and read their FBI bugs reportedly picked up 14 hours of party chatter, the clinking of glasses, the sounds of illicit sex, including King's cries, "I'm effing for God and I'm not a Negro tonight." Now look, if our kids read that and some little editorial bell doesn't go off in their brain that says, you know, this doesn't quite square with the rest of the stuff that I've been reading about Dr. King, that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is if the bell goes off, but they have no idea how to figure out who owns this site or the people or the reasons why those people have the site up. But the biggest problem is if I give you the quiz right now and I say, you tell me who owns this site, figure it out, who owns this site, and tell me what their agenda is. If you can't do that, and I will almost bet that there are at least 75% of you in this room can't do it. If you can't do it, you are illiterate in this environment. Because that means that anybody with a little bit of web skill, a little bit of money, can put up anything they want, make it look good, pump it up in the Google search, and they will have people believing it. This is Stormfront.org, the white Aryan nation. The only reason that they have this site up online is because they want to get rid of the Dr. King holiday. So information is definitely shifting. Now, real fast, our ideas of teaching and classrooms have to change. Like I said, I'm not a real fan of my public school right now, but it's not because of the people, it's because of the opportunities my kids don't have. So we're trying to supplement my kids' education. This is my wife's office, where Tuesdays from, in fact today Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is. Tuesday from 4 to 5. They were in there today, actually, talking to someone in Illinois who was helping with SPORE. My son is learning to play SPORE, and so we had them in. But anyway, this is Steve Hargadon from California. His passion in life is providing low-cost computing and internet access to homeless shelters in California because he wants to lift those people up, right? So we decided to have Steve come in and be interviewed by my kids. Those are a couple homeschool friends of ours. And he interviewed them, they interviewed him, and they learned about his passion, and it was great. They got outside the classroom. A couple weeks after this, we were looking on the web, and my kids found a program called Scratch from MIT. It's a little programming language. It's really cool, really fun for little kids to go and create programs where things happen And my kids were like, can you teach us how to do that? And I said, well, I don't really know how to do that. We could figure it out, but I had to get on a plane or something. But I said, look, let me see if I can find someone for Tuesday to come in and teach you Scratch. So a couple weeks after that, sure enough, 4 o'clock Eastern time in my wife's office, Andrew from Perth, Scotland came in using Skype and this program called Yugma, a free desktop sharing tool. And for an hour, he gave my kids a great initiation in how to use Scratch. And everything worked great. The technology was great. There was only one problem, and that was that Andrew was up past his bedtime, because it was 10 o'clock at night in Perth, and he's 13. And that's his dad, Neil, who's in my network. That's who I'm connected to. Now, what are my kids learning? My kids are learning good. You know what? Teachers come in all shapes and sizes and ages from anywhere in the world. And my job is to teach my kids how to find them. And I say this a lot, and I know people kind of get unsettled when I say this, but I'm going to tell you, the best teachers in my kids' lives are not going to be the ones that they are given in their classrooms. They're going to be the ones that they find. There is no doubt in my life, in my mind, that the people that they find to teach them along the passions that they have are going to turn out to be their best teachers. And that is no discredit to the people in the room. It's the reality of a different world that is more highly connected and more highly networked than it has ever been in the past. Now, just one more piece about classrooms, and I'm going to have to pull this one up, and then I'll stop. My daughter is in 6th grade. My son is in 4th grade. Up until last year, my kids came home on Fridays with something called the Friday folder. And the Friday folder was filled with paper. It had all sorts of assignments, worksheets, assessments, permission slips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some of the stuff we had to sign, right? And basically the bus would be like 50 yards from the stop, and Monday morning we'd be signing things. There'd be chaos. They'd be screaming, running down, and then that signed paper would come back the next week in the Friday folder. My wife and I got so inundated by paper that we just said, you know what, let's save it all. And so every Friday we took all the paper and we just started a stack in the bedroom of all this paper that came home. And at the end of the year, it was 2.5 feet tall. 2.5 feet tall. Now here's the deal. My kids never looked at that stack of paper all year long. All that work that they had done, all that work, all those worksheets, all those tests, all those assignments, those projects, whatever else, they never looked at them again, ever. Now, I think we need to start thinking differently about the types of things that we ask our kids to do in a world like this. And hopefully this will come up real fast. This is Radio Willowweb, and if you put the volume up, we'll just let this play. This is a podcast from, I'll let the podcast run here. Hopefully this will come up. It'll be worth it if you wait just a second. But this is a podcast from a school in Omaha that I may have to imitate this for you and do my rendition of this. But it's a podcast from a school in Omaha, and basically it starts out with some really interesting, like, dun, 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 dun music, and then this little girl comes on, and she goes, "Greetings, welcome to Radio Willowweb. My first grade friends and I are going to tell you a little about those amazing ants. We're going to talk about how ants went up in the space shuttle, how ants had kings and queens, and what ants do in their farms." And then there's more music. And it's this podcast. It's 7 minutes and 13 seconds of first graders in Omaha talking about ants. It's riveting radio, let me tell you, right? There's this one part where Grant, I think it is, Grant, ants or astronauts, the joke is, what do you call the ant that went up in the space shuttle? Astro ants. First grade humor, work with me here, right? So, it's great stuff, right? Now, here's what happened. They studied ants in the classroom. They looked at ants under a microscope. They did the ant farm thing. They did the whole ant thing, and then the teacher said to them, okay, so what do you want to tell the world that you know about ants? And they said, well, you know, the space shuttle thing is really cool, and yeah, that royalty thing is pretty cool. And so they put all that stuff together. They wrote the whole script. They did the whole thing in Audacity, produced the whole thing, published it up online, and now what do you think they want to know? What do you think they want to know about their podcast? How many people are listening? How many downloads did we get this week? Where'd they come from? They have a big flag, a map of the world that have stick flags from all the different places in the world where people are coming to download their podcasts, right? Okay, here's the deal. My kids would have learned about ants in the classroom, would have reported out about what they knew on something that would have come home in the Friday folder that would have ended up in that stack of paper, never to be looked at again. Never. And I want that for my kids. I want them to know that they can have a global audience, can do real work for real purposes, that they can teach, even in first grade. They can teach what they know to other people that are out there. So teaching is changing. Classrooms are changing. Learning is changing. Information is changing. This is a moment of disruption that we need to get our brains around. Now, I give these presentations a lot, and invariably people come up at the end, and they're very nice, they're gracious, and they say, you know, I hear you. You know, this is one of those challenges that we have, but you know what? My principal just doesn't get it. My principal would never let me do any of this stuff. Or, yeah, you know, but I just don't have the time. When am I supposed to fit in the time to start learning all these technologies? Or, yeah, but I don't have the technology in my classroom. I don't have computers in my classroom. How am I supposed to do this? Or, yeah, but my parents would never let me do this. Or, yeah, but I have these assessments that I have to get my kids to pass. And look, I'm not discounting any of those. Those are all valid. Those are all real. That's what life as a teacher is. You answer to very, very many bosses if you are a teacher. So my challenge to you is not how do you take podcasts and put them into your first grade classroom. My challenge to you is not how do you convince your principal, how do you find the time, how do you get past the assessments. My challenge to you is what are you going to do to change the way that you learn in the context of these technologies? How are you going to connect to whatever it is that you are passionate about? And it doesn't matter what you're passionate about. We worked with a teacher down in Atlanta. We asked them what their passions were. This one guy stood up and he goes, I am passionate about mountain biking on a unicycle. And we all went, what? And he got up. He got up and he was like, yeah, it's great. And if a tree goes down, you can like unicycle over it as you're going down the mountain. And he's like, I love it, but there just aren't a lot of people to do it with. And we all, you know, we were thinking, because they're all dead. They're all up the cliff. In 5 minutes, he was connected to a community of Municyclists. Municyclists. They're out there, believe it or not. He now has a webcam. You can watch his videos on YouTube as he's going down the mountain, right? Now the point is, he's a Latin teacher. He's a Latin teacher. The last thing I wanted him to do is start blogging with his Latin students. That's not what this is about, because guess what? Until he learns to use these technologies, until he owns them around whatever group he wants to form or become a part of, he's not going to get how the pedagogies shift around the uses of these technologies in the classroom. And I have to tell you, the pedagogies are vastly different. This is about network building. It's about connecting. It's about sharing passions with people from around the world. This is not simply taking what you're doing on paper and digitizing it and publishing it as a blog and thinking that things have changed. And I have to tell you, even though there are tens of thousands of teachers and hundreds of thousands of kids that are using these technologies in their classrooms right now, 95% of what I see is just that. Nothing's changed. It's just a different way of publishing. And that is because the people in the room don't own it. They don't understand how learning can be transformed. They don't understand how they can connect to other people and learn from them in ways that look nothing like the physical space classrooms that they're in. And until they do that, I don't know how they teach my kids and prepare them for their futures. That's the challenge. What are you going to do? How are you going to look at your own learning in the context of whatever it is you want to learn about and take that learning and take those experiences so you can counsel my kids, so you can model for them the ways in which this world is much different from the way the world was in the past. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. Thank you.